Simon was not always in the world of Sprunki. This is his sad origin story. In a secret lab hidden from the world, a scientist named Dr. Simon worked day and night. He loved studying the mysteries of space and was fascinated by the idea of life beyond Earth. This lab was unlike any other. It was filled with aliens, each one captured and brought here for research. Among them was a glowing yellow alien, unlike anything Simon had ever seen. Simon called him Yellow. Yellow was different from the other aliens. He glowed softly, his antennae twitched in strange ways, and he seemed calm compared to the others. Simon was amazed by him and spent most of his time studying Yellow. Simon began his studies by observing Yellow's behavior. He noticed how Yellow responded to light, sound, and even emotions in ways that were unique. While the other aliens seemed agitated or frightened, Yellow was calm, almost thoughtful, as if it were aware of what was happening around it. Simon kept detailed notes, sketching Yellow's antennae, its glowing skin, and the subtle way its body seemed to hum, almost like it was alive with energy. Simon tried to communicate with Yellow in several ways. He used lights, sounds, and simple hand gestures. While Yellow couldn't speak, it seemed to understand Simon's actions. It would tilt its head or move its antennae in response. And sometimes, Simon thought he could see a faint smile on its face. Simon even played music in the lab, curious to see how Yellow would react. To his amazement, Yellow's glow brightened, and its antennae swayed slightly to the rhythm. This discovery fascinated Simon and made him wonder if music was somehow a part of Yellow's essence. Simon also noticed that Yellow never ate or drank, yet it seemed full of energy. This led Simon to theorize that Yellow absorbed energy from its environment, possibly through light or sound. Simon's fascination grew with every discovery, and he began spending most of his nights in the lab, studying Yellow in quiet solitude. Over time, Simon started to see Yellow as more than just a subject of study. He began to talk to it, sharing his thoughts and ideas even though he knew Yellow couldn't respond. He would tell Yellow about his dreams of finding life beyond Earth and his frustrations with the other scientists' cruel methods. Yellow, in turn, seemed to listen, its glowing body pulsing softly as if in empathy. Simon also noticed small, almost human-like behaviors in Yellow. It would follow him with its eyes, tilt its head when he spoke, and even mimic some of his gestures. These moments deepened Simon's belief that Yellow was not just a creature to be studied. It was a sentient being, capable of forming a bond. But the lab was not a safe place. Other scientists did cruel experiments on the aliens. They used strange chemicals and medicines, testing things that often hurt or even killed the aliens. Simon hated what they were doing. Simon had always been different from the other scientists. He saw the aliens not as experiments, but as beings with emotions, potential, and purpose. Simon had long been disturbed by the unethical experiments carried out by his colleagues, but he felt powerless to stop them. The experiments were cruel and often fatal. Aliens were subjected to injections of unknown chemicals, exposure to extreme temperatures, and even surgical procedures with no regard for their pain. For Simon, It was a moment of clarity. The lab wasn't a place of discovery. It was a place of destruction. Over the weeks, more aliens succumbed to the experiments, one by one. The cages in the lab grew empty. Simon began to feel the crushing weight of guilt. He spent nights staring at Yellow's cage, watching the glow of its skin dim as the lab's oppressive environment drained it of energy. He couldn't bear the thought of Yellow meeting the same fate as the others. One evening, Simon overheard a meeting between the senior scientists. They had decided that Yellow would be next. Its unique glowing skin and energy-emitting antennae made it a prime candidate for a new, highly invasive procedure. Simon's heart sank. He knew Yellow wouldn't survive. That night, Simon sat alone in his lab, staring at the dim glow of Yellow's cage. He remembered the moments they shared, the way Yellow responded to music, the way it followed him with its curious eyes, and the unspoken bond they had formed. Yellow wasn't just an alien, it was a friend, and Simon couldn't let it die. He knew he had to save Yellow before it was too late. One night, when everyone in the lab was asleep, Simon decided to act. He unlocked Yellow's cage and led him out. Alarms soon blared, and guards started chasing them. Finally, they escaped into the night. Simon brought Yellow to his small home, hiding him from the world. He gave Yellow food and a warm place to rest. Even though Yellow didn't speak, they shared a bond, and in his eyes, Simon saw trust. It was the first time in years that either of them experienced a sense of freedom. Simon lived in a small, modest house on the edge of town, surrounded by thick woods. It wasn't much, but it was far from the prying eyes of the lab and its cruel scientists. For both Simon and Yellow, it became a sanctuary, a place where they could begin to understand each other. He tried offering food, bread, fruits, and even water, but Yellow didn't seem interested. Instead, it hovered near a small lamp, its glow intensifying as if it were absorbing the light. Simon laid out blankets in the living room, creating a makeshift bed for Yellow. Though Yellow didn't respond with words, its glow pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. They were somehow the same. Simon was also alone. He dedicated all his time to the lab and to his studies that he somehow forgot to live a normal life and engage in normal relationships. They both became friends. But their peace did not last long. A neighbor saw Yellow through the window, fearful and unsure. She called the local authorities, reporting strange lights and an unnatural figure inside Simon's home. Though she didn't know it, her call was intercepted by the secret organization overseeing the lab. The moment the description of a glowing figure was mentioned, the scientists realized they had found their escaped specimen, the lab's security team. Clad in dark uniforms and armed with sedatives, surrounded the property. They broke through the front door with a battering ram. Yellow, startled and frightened, emitted a low hum that caused the lights in the house to flicker. Simon tried to shield Yellow, but the security team overpowered him, sedating him with a tranquilizer dart. As Simon collapsed, he could see Yellow reaching out for him, its glow pulsing in distress. When Simon regained consciousness, he was back in the lab, restrained. Yellow was nearby, locked in a reinforced containment unit. The senior scientists stood over him, their faces cold and furious. They knew they can no longer trust Simon to keep the secrets of their lab, and they had to get rid of both, him and Yellow. The scientists were already preparing to use both Simon and Yellow in a new, highly experimental procedure. The scientists connected Simon and Yellow to an elaborate machine, wires and electrodes snaking across their bodies. The lead scientist explained that the procedure was designed to merge human and alien DNA, creating a hybrid being with unprecedented abilities. It was risky, untested, and potentially fatal, but the scientists didn't care. But something strange began to happen. As they began the experiment, the machine powered up. The lab's computers flickered. Screens that once displayed data now showed strange, shifting patterns of light and color. From the speakers, a faint melody began to play. The scientists froze, staring at the screens. This was not part of their program. The music seemed to come from nowhere. Some suspected it was Yellow, somehow projecting this strange melody. Others thought it was a virus infiltrating their systems. No one could explain it. Then, without warning, everything erupted in a blinding flash of light and sound. When the light faded, the lab was silent. Everything about the secret lab was destroyed. Only one being stood there. It was Simon and Yellow. They became a single being. Yellow's glowing, alien body now fused with Simon's consciousness, antennae pulsing with energy. Simon felt powerful and alive. The music returned. This was different from the explosion. It felt deliberate, as though the energy had a purpose. When the light faded, Simon found himself in a new world. Gone were the cold, sterile walls of the lab. In their place was a vibrant, colorful landscape alive with music. Every surface seemed to pulse with rhythm, and the air was filled with melodies that felt strangely familiar. Simon looked down at himself. His glowing body now felt at home in this world, as though he belonged here. The music around him resonated with his antennae, filling him with a sense of peace he had never known. He was forever in the world of Sprunki.